Nolan is not being artistic in his direction. It looks plain nonsense to me. Special thanks to actor Robert Pattinson. Where are the bombings? He was obsessed in creating a bomb that Nazis cannot, World War, and sex. That will defy nature. Hold on a second. Let me get this straight. Christopher Nolan's films are known for many great qualities. Come on, he's not going to detonate the bomb. Most of the aspects look Oscar promising. Nolan used no CGI in the film. Dragged. Nolan must have pushed for a frightening end that changed the world forever. A particular division of the human race was wiped off. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Ouch. Hey everyone, the Dark Knaik is here. During World War II, US Army General Leslie Groves offered physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer to become the director of the Manhattan Project. Although Oppenheimer accepted, and despite leading to a successful mission, his legacy and reputation were at stake when in 1954, during the McCarthy era, he was accused of being a communist and a Soviet spy. Oppenheimer is based on J. Robert Oppenheimer's biography, American Prometheus, written by Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin. Special thanks to actor Robert Pattinson, who gifted Christopher Nolan a book of Oppenheimer's speeches. These materials inspired Nolan to direct Oppenheimer. This 3-hour epic biodrama mostly focuses on 1954 Oppenheimer security hearing, his role in the Manhattan Project, the accusations against him, and his sporadic affair with Jean Tetlock. Oppenheimer, in its entirety, drives you to understand Oppenheimer that perhaps, a big perhaps, he was obsessed in creating a bomb that Nazis cannot or do not. Being a Jew and observing the Jewish consequences of the war, his immense hatred for Adolf Hitler gave General Groves an idea to give the world-changing project to a Jew. The building of Oppenheimer's character grows smoothly with the screenplay and intensifies in the middle of the story. You can feel yourself in his shoes and feel the heat that sweats him after getting stuck in the ugliest mashup of quantum mechanics, communism, World War, and sex. Nolan smartly executed these 4 outrageous bombings of Oppenheimer's personal biograph and showed us that before America was preparing a new world for which no one was ready, Oppenheimer was already bombed. This film successfully dramatizes the complexity of Oppenheimer's life. The film is not a usual path of gathering around and get the candies of the offered. Oppenheimer is a blend of science and politics that is brilliantly transformed in a cinematic format. The film is talkative, but fruit for a wise. I don't think that the viewers will have ever taken such keen interest before in advanced physics, such as quantum mechanics, as much as in this film. A 3-hour non-action historical drama, with more than half of the film dramatizing the trials and hearing, with a worldwide grossing of almost 3 commas, definitely indicates that physics has found its cinematic voice, with much excellence in almost every technical aspect. Observe that most of the scenes of the film that has Robert Downey Jr. as Lewis Strauss is in black and white format. This can be a metaphor of dramatizing the culprit colorless. Not really sure. What is your opinion about having a lot of scenes in black and white format? Share your opinion. Most of the aspects look Oscar promising. Jennifer Leem's editing deserves to be praised, as the film adopted a non-linear narrative. Observe all the interrogation scenes with Oppenheimer and that table conference with Strauss. Nolan recreated the town of Los Alamos, just like Oppenheimer asked General Groves to build a town for creating the bomb in secrecy. So for the entire setup, the production designing of Ruth T. Hong deserves the credit. The background score of Ludwig Göransson not really bought me, but I will praise his effort to go in through the story and compose some interesting pieces on it. The winning score of all the compositions was definitely that tense building score when the bomb is about to explode. There was another piece where Attorney Roger Robb pressing Oppenheimer goes very intense. So he deserves appreciation. If those two scenes had no score, I believe the viewers would not have fried at all. Once again, Nolan used no CGI in the film. The Trinity test was not real. Come on, he's not going to detonate the bomb, atomic bomb. That's super expensive for any film production company. But magnesium, propane, gasoline, and aluminum powder were used to recreate the blast. Nolan is so adhered to realism. Seriously, I swear, if he makes an animated film on animals, he's going to invite the animals in the studio to voice over the characters. Speaking of explosion scene, I think that entire shot of waiting for the explosion was superbly orchestrated, and that took like around 5 minutes. Oppenheimer addressing the rally and imagining the consequences. Notice the excitement in the rally turning into mourning. Christopher Nolan's films are known for many great qualities. One of the many that always impresses me are fast exchange of dialogues. And most of those lines are hard-hitting and blunt. Always reminds me of Aaron Sorkin's style of dialogues exchange. This film also leaves no equation for the disapproval. During the process of recruiting for the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer meets one of the listed to whom he pushes that they need us. What does he reply? Until they don't. Ouch. This is the first headshot to Oppenheimer in this dirty game. There are so many actors in this film. To fit them in a 3-hour film, you need a powerful screenplay. Otherwise, there is a 99% chance for such assembling of actors to be considered dragged. Oppenheimer, with all that incredible casting, sent a bullet message that the casting was to fill the gap when the script demanded. It is the continuity that balanced their longer and shorter appearances. Their weight of appearance never mattered. Each of them were important to the story. The one I missed was definitely Michael Caine. Christopher Nolan's favorite, he always shows up in his film. He appeared in 8 consecutive films, but this time he didn't. He has retired and he's 90 years old. That old man deserves to rest. Seems like Oppenheimer will not only dominate at the coming Oscars in the technicalities, but also for the performances. Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss look clear favorites to actually win the Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor awards. Their nominations are stamped. And I will not be surprised if Emily Blunt and Matt Damon also show up in the nominations. Coming fresh, building the legendary status of Thomas Shelby. One of the best decisions of Christopher Nolan for making this film was selecting the right face for Oppenheimer. Cillian's facial features are visibly more obstructing. In the transition of the burning struggle to achieve the unforgettable, the weight of pressure of his acting is very dogmatizing. The body language clearly melts once he begins to regret and realize their bigger plans of his brainchild. And another actor, after building the legendary status of Tony Stark, has arrived on stage with such a stunning performance in Aegis. Notice Robert Downey Jr. going nuts about Oppenheimer after the hearing. Shocking, isn't it? Minuses in Christopher Nolan's films. Why not? I know currently he's the world's greatest director, but people can have disagreement. See, there can never be a perfect film. I don't believe I will ever give 10 out of 10 ever in my life. You know why? That will defy nature. There can never be a perfect film. Every film definitely has an issue. And I have at least 5 with this film. The continuity from the success of the Trinity test drives towards the consequences to which Oppenheimer mentally suffers and regrets. The trouble is for the viewers spending the remaining last of the 3 hours listening to the hearing and interrogation, which is not for everyone. One of the Manhattan Project scientists, David L. Hill, played by Rami Malek, had an unusual character growth. If I'm not mistaken, in the entire film he appeared only 3 times. In the first 2, he was mute and Oppenheimer stopped him from writing and then signing. And then in the last phase of the film, out of nowhere, he showed up in Strauss' hearing for the final plot twist and testified against Strauss. So where goes the character development? How come he knew all this about Strauss' dirty game against Oppenheimer? The whole point is missing about what leads him to there. Oppenheimer had a mad affair with Jean Tetlock, the communist. That is true. But the problem is that everything revolving around Jean Tetlock is either a bad execution or a shocking waste of time. That sex scene where Jean Tetlock picks that line for Oppenheimer to read to her. Did she know Sanskrit? How is it that she has to reach to the very page where that line out of 700 verses, the loudest one, is written and she asks him to translate to her? There was an outrage in India over this scene because Bhagavad Gita was held by a woman in nudity. Kind of disrespect. In all honesty, it was unnecessary. The entire scene was unnecessary. If that actually happened, I have no disagreement over this. There is no such thing mentioned in the book that nude Jean Tetlock asked Oppenheimer to read her one of the lines of Bhagavad Gita. There is no such mention. And if such thing never happened, Nolan is not being artistic in his direction, but it looks plain nonsense to me. And I wanted Oppenheimer to utter those lines in Sanskrit because Robert Oppenheimer was well versed in Sanskrit as well as in some other languages, but I don't know why he didn't speak in Sanskrit. Christopher Nolan is the master of concluding the film. He has moved us with one of the best possible finishes. Oppenheimer doesn't have a bad ending, but not even a wow ending. Yes, the suspense disclosed about what the two great physicists exchanged, but Nolan must have pushed for a frightening end. In his shoes, I would have pushed the timeline to 1965 on the sets of NBC News, where visibly old and deeply hurt Oppenheimer regretfully quotes that line from Bhagavad Gita, and with that quote would follow the dramatizing of atomic bombings on those two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Speaking of bombings, where are the bombings? I understand the significance of the Manhattan Project, but despite the fact that Oppenheimer was not directly involved in the atomic bombings on those cities, still one of the ugliest chapters of the human race that changed the world forever. This was on the cards, and we all were hopeful that the director who crashed the plane in the name of realism will show us the atomic bombings instead of showing us the explosion of the Trinity test. I was lost when Oppenheimer poisoned an apple, but this incident is mentioned in the book. He was near to get expelled before his parents intervened. Oppenheimer's theory on black holes' existence is correct, and the news of Poland's invasion did break the same day. Oppenheimer did give away his child to his friend, but the circumstances were different. Håkon Chevalier asking Oppenheimer to pass information to George Eltonton was true. The storm did interfere before the Trinity test. Oppenheimer's meeting with President Truman went unpleasant as shown. And Truman, believe it or not, actually called him a crybaby scientist. Indeed, Klaus Fuchs will always be remembered as the Manhattan Project spy who passed the details to the Soviets. Mrs. Oppenheimer has quite an accurate portrayal. She was married 3 times before Oppenheimer, a highly educated, but sadly, a depressed and an alcoholic woman. David Hill's testimony against Strauss was truly the game changer. He did testify that Strauss had organized the campaign against Oppenheimer as an act of petty vengeance. Nolan has already completed 2 trilogies in his legendary career. One is Dark Knight Trilogy, and the other one, which still doesn't have any official name, but I can convincingly call it Time Trilogy, or in better terms, Inversion Trilogy, which are Inception, Interstellar, and Tenet. And now looks like Nolan is about to complete another trilogy, which is World War trilogy. We will see in the future what film is going to join Dunkirk and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer emphasizes on human bonds and breaking the walls to exceed that want, for which a human spends energy, time, effort, and sometimes life. A groundbreaking goal that looks to lift the dreamer and her legacy either becomes a milestone or a curse. Oppenheimer shows the madness of achieving a goal and turning stupid and blind over not realizing that the people who were shouldering around you were the ones who were always ready to break you in pieces since the first day they met you, for a reason. The dirty game was played. A particular division of the human race was wiped off, and you were just there assuming that you were fighting your own war against evil? Everyone who entered into the World War had her hands dirty and soul corrupted. We all have considered the winners and losers from all the battles and wars. But hold on a second, let me get this straight. The ugliest truth is that no one actually wins from these fights. Both the opponents fight each other, and the civilians are the ones who outnumber the soldiers in casualties, unless the soldiers fight on the battlefield. In short, the egos of the global powers raise flags against each other and dominate by killing. And Oppenheimer superbly shows how a scientist is used for their wants and then thrown into the mud when the mission is over. I'm Knaik.